buddy?
Okay, we're gonna start.
You want to just go down the line? What do you want?
Well, can you tell us a little bit about what it's like to bring the show back to South Carolina? 10 years?
I had the pleasure of being a guest when we did the ESPN referee to spring game. I got chosen for that. So that was Debo's senior year, his spring game. He didn't play. Would it help me out? 18, right around there. It's awesome. I just think the passion of this place and actually seeing it, felt like I was only here at nighttime. Obviously, the stadium ranks up there, but it's good to know. It's good to come to a school that knows what game day is all about. You know, it's an early morning. I'm sure people will miss curfew tonight and still be out there tomorrow. But it's awesome to be here and looking forward to trying to get out a little more to explore the city. But I'm not a Friday night guy with a Saturday show. That's it. I'm going to leave that to the youngsters.
Hey, which team has the most pressure on Saturday?
LSU. They already have a loss on a big stage. Got exposed, I think, a little bit in there. I think the injuries at running back are a big deal. Against Nichols, they didn't really try and run the ball. I don't know if they're trying to save hits on the running back or they're that confident in their pass game, but I think South Carolina's playing with house money, man. I don't think many people had them 2-0 hosting game day in week 3. So, I think the road team has a lot on its shoulder. I think they know that. And I think South Carolina knows that you'll see that free will and spirit, and coach will have some trickery dialed up. So it's an awesome matchup. I mean, you got a great defensive line against, in the preseason, everybody had LSU's top 3 offensive line. So that's the matchup to me that I'm fired up to watch as far as the game goes.
Yeah, how impressed are you with Carolina's edge rushers?
Well, I live in D.C. now, so I got to see Mr. Stewart last year. The area is just tremendous with talent. I mean, you guys know that. There's constant recruiting battles going back up there in the DMV. So I didn't know. When I went to see him, I couldn't believe he was 6'6". Like, it's, high school you still get to lie about your height, right?
Right.
And he's all of it. Super impressive last week on that stage. Knowing what was at stake, I do think South Carolina dictated that game and made Kentucky in predictable throwing situations, and I think that's the key tomorrow. Is if Carolina could do that again, then they're gonna, with this crowd noise and all that factors in for a true SEC road game, LSU's gonna have their work cut out for them.
And you mentioned being here week 2. I mean, did you look at the schedule throughout this year? Did you think you'd be in Columbia at all this season?
I thought this had a possibility because, I mean, when you get that early of conference games, you never know what's going to happen. I mean, the way the rosters are turned over and the way, rosters change and coaching changes, I said, that they're going up to Lexington. They've beaten Kentucky before. So if there was a stop, it was going to be this one. I'll just say that. But like I said, they're house money, man. Ride the Lightning. It's only great to have this exposure, and we're here because South Carolina's 2-0. Nothing better saying than that.
Lenore said after the first game that he was nervous and he played very timid. What did you think of his performance against Kentucky and how he kind of adjusted to his second game?
I thought he adjusted in the second game, but I also think he adjusted to the situation, right? You get a lead that early in a game, you're going to be able to lean on your defense. Do not make mistakes. And I thought, I compared, Notre Dame week 1 went to A&M. They did whatever they had to do just to get a win and get out of there. Young offensive line, new quarterback, the whole deal. South Carolina, you saw that. Young quarterback, we got a lead, our defense is dominating. Just don't screw it up. Keep yourself in manageable situations, and you're going to get a win, and it was a resounding win. So I think he grew up a lot. I do find it interesting where the first starts are for these guys. Sometimes at home, in a game you're expected to win, and you're a huge favorite, that just adds to it. Whereas you see some guys go on the road and play better. So I expect them only to get better. You can't, the way practice is now and how camp is different, and as far as contact and padded practices, you're going to learn a lot more under fire in game situations, and you've seen that with its growth.
Just watching from afar, what's kind of been your impression of St. Beaver and what he's trying to do at South Carolina?
Oh, I mean, the foundation's here, right? I mean, the excitement that he's going to bring. He's I would say, in the younger tier of coaches, and I think players relate to that now. All the social media stuff he does, guys love that. So I think he's done a great job of grabbing that. Now this is this is where you can take, I think, a couple steps maybe that you weren't expected to take, with this 2-0 start. So, everything's. I mean, I would imagine this is a huge recruiting weekend, and I know it. Being a former player, you definitely remember what the team does on your recruiting trip, whether they win or lose. That carries some weight because it's the best place on earth when you win, right? So hoping those recruits get to see the best place on earth, I'm sure, is what the goal is for him this year or this week.
Speaking of that, just the news today of Ray Tanner stepping down eventually as an athletic director. What do you think that means for this new wave, consistency, future of the program?
Well, I mean, you got a dynasty in the women's basketball program. You had a great year with the men's basketball program, and then you have a young exuberant coach, Coach Beamer, that's coached at the biggest levels. So I look at it as an opportunity. I mean, it's a great opportunity. You're in the best conference in the country, and you have all the goods you need as far as funding and all that. So it looks as enticing a job as there is out there.
Going back to something you said earlier about LSU's inability to run the ball, do you think there's a way that Nussmeier can throw them to a victory in this venue on Saturday?
Absolutely. I think they're good enough, and I think they're better pass protectors than they are run blockers. Now, what's the old adage? Throw it when they think you're going to run it, and run it when they think you're going to throw it. I do think, and that's the question I have, is why didn't they choose to run the ball last week as much as I thought they were late in the game? I thought it was an adjustment against SC, because SC came out and stacked the box against that offensive line, and really LSU struggled to get the run game going. Then Emery got hurt, but then you notice he got going late in the game because SC backed guys out of it to protect against the pass, because LSU is that lethal. It sounds like they're getting more guys back. I really like their tight end room. So what are they going to do with the tight? It feels like every time Mason Taylor split out, he's out there to block on screens and stuff. You motion him in. Do you help with the run game? Help on those defensive ends that the Gamecocks have. That's the chess match, that's the one. But yeah, I think Nussmeier is that good. I really do. I love his story. Holding his ground, playing behind the Heisman Trophy winner. You don't see that in college football anymore. And the patience, I think, has really stood out to him. You saw him in the bowl game last year, and it's been really cool to watch. And I'm sure he's jacked up to go on the road and play a true road game here.
Steve, in terms of the ground game here, Rocket Sanders among the leaders in missed tackles, but not really having that big explosive yardage game yet. What do you expect from the ground game on the South Carolina side? I
think him to be more stern in the approach, knowing what's on the other side, and keeping LSU's offense off the field. Now you got 2 games. You went on the road. You got it done. But we haven't seen Rocket take off. The Arkansas days where he got it. And I thought it was a huge sign in the portal to get him, knowing the capability he has. But again, you've got transition in the offensive line. We know how much South Carolina struggled on the offensive line last year. You bring in some new pieces. Guys are still growing up, man. It's big boy football, and they're 18, 19 years old. So I expect the approach to be more stern, knowing what's at stake, and like I said, the opposition and the offense that they bring here. You want to keep them off the field and have your defense at it and fresh.
You mentioned playing with house money. How big of a factor is it for South Carolina? They beat Kentucky, they beat LSU. You've got a chance to start 4-0, and you'll have some money in the bank before the schedule really gets brutal.
Well, I think it's kind of tricky a little bit, because you watch the tape of the first game, and it's like, wait, this team's going on the road. I don't know what to expect. You're in a home crowd. You don't play well. You get turnovers. You're fortunate. You get a win. And then you go out and then you show what you could do as far as a dominating defense. So, yeah, I mean, it's there in the grasp. You got to be careful looking too far ahead, though, right? I mean, everybody knows how tough the SEC as far as conference games are, but it's there for the taking. You get, is Akron next week?
Yes.
Right? I mean, it's staring you right in the way, but again, you get one step at a time, one game at a time. I'm sure Coach is really, really looking at this opportunity as that giant step. Like you said, you go 2-0 in the SEC. All these teams, that's going to add up. But it's nice to get a head start on the league that has like 16 teams now, right? 16, yeah.
So you talked about how it's going to be strength versus strength in the trenches, specifically for LSU's O-line and South Carolina's pass rushers and D-line. How do you see that matchup going for both teams?
Again, predictable situations. I think if South Carolina could dictate, that's what made them successful last week, right? I mean, the defensive ends know when a team has to throw the ball, they're going to give it their all. You can see it in their stances. They're lower. They get that racer stance. But again, the game is the balance of LSU's offense. Can they run the ball and not get stuck behind the? I mean, how many times was Kentucky behind the chains on whether they tried to wide running game that they lost yards? They did have some success. They averaged over 5 yards between the tackles, but when the game gets out of hand, it's multiple scores. That pressure adds up, especially when you're at home. And in South Carolina, that just fed in the Gamecocks defense. I mean, they thrived in that situation, as a lot of defenses do. So it was good to see them bounce back after you weren't sure what you were getting after that first week. So a huge deal, and I expect them to play really well. They know what they're up against. I'm sure Coach Beamer's talking about how the NFL talent that LSU has on the offensive line. That's all in the mind game, but we'll see what happens, when they line it up between the out of bounds.
You guys are going to have Don Staley on the desk tomorrow. How excited are you guys to have her join the show?
Fired up. So, I mean, we've had her on a couple times with on Scott Van Pelt Sports Center. Face of the sport, man. Like, it doesn't get any bigger than that. And seeing the way this community has rallied around, like I said, face of the sport, program of the sport, it doesn't get any bigger. And as far as coming here for an SEC league game, and you got the biggest name in the game on your show, things are looking good.
Speaking of your show, what are you hoping from the fans tomorrow, the people that are excited to see you? What do you want the atmosphere to feel like? Well,
like I said, I know they're going to miss curfew, but that's all right. You could still do things in the morning. I expect a monster crowd. I really do. Whether it's the student groups that are around and making the younger bucks go get spots and all that stuff, all that fun stuff. It's early. I mean, I'm the first guy out there at 7:30 for a Sports Center taping, so it'll be interesting to see how loud. I mean, DJ Griff here with us, he gets the crowd going. I'm sure you guys won't need any energy, provided what the circumstance is, but I expect a monster crowd and a great showing, as it's been here in the past.
And Steve, on that note, when a team's like a 7.5 win underdog, but they have a home crowd like this, how big of an impact does that really make in a game?
Huge, because you factor in whether they're going to be a factor. You come out and play with it. You can't come out and be sloppy. We talked about quarterback play. You got to keep yourself in manageable situations. And then when the opposing team, what is it? Are you within one score? Are you up? Crowds feed off of the situation in the game, and they have the perfect team to have that crowd involved. When that defense thrives on crowd noise and in tough situations, I mean, they did it on the road. It's only going to be a bigger factor, at home. So 12th man, whatever you want to say. The crowd here should be a factor, and I'm sure the team is hoping for an extra boost.
All right, thank you.
All good?
Yes, sir.
All right, everybody have a good one.
All right,